We've all seen those perfect professional aquascapes. They look incredible in photos, but keeping them that way for years is a different story. Most high-end builds are designed for a single moment in time, but a forever aquarium is designed to mature and stay stable for years. If you are tired of your tanks crashing after a few months, here are 5 tips to build a professional scape that actually lasts. A few years back, I built an aquascape that should have been a disaster. It was a cool design with a lot of rocks glued together to form 2 large rock structures covered almost entirely in anubias. That was the look I wanted, but from a biological standpoint, it was a trap. First, I was using serious stones. If you've used them, you know they can significantly spike your water hardness and pH. Then there was the plant choice. Anubias are epiphytes. They grow slowly and don't use a lot of nutrients from the water column. Normally, an aquarium with lots of serious stones and low plant mass is a recipe for algae, but this tank stayed stable for a couple of years, until the day I decided to take it apart. So how did it survive? It survived because of a hidden layer of aqua soil. Before I even started the Hardscape, I knew the problems I was going to have. So I built 2 large pockets in the back using the rocks themselves. I filled those pockets with aqua soil, and then I planted a bunch of stem plants. From the front, they were completely invisible. You only saw the clean anubias look. But behind the Hardscape, that soil was working to lower the pH and KH, fighting the effect of the stones. And those hidden stem plants were acting like a biological sponge, soaking up nutrients before algae could get to them. It's a strategy you can apply to almost any aquarium. Just one warning, if you try this on a tank that's already running, don't dump all the soil at once. New aqua soil can release a lot of ammonia when it's first introduced. Add it slowly over a few weeks so your filter can keep up. When we're building an aquascape, we focus almost entirely on how it looks. We think about depth, shadows, layers, a focal point, but just one thing that we tend not to think about: maintenance. Because regardless of how beautiful your tank is, you will have to clean it. That's a fact in this hobby. You might need a lot of maintenance or just a little bit of maintenance, but you will need it. There's no aquarium without maintenance. One of the biggest mistakes I see, and one I've made myself, is placing the Hardscape too close to the glass. As soon as a little bit of algae starts growing in those tight spots, you are in trouble. If you can't fit a scraper or a toothbrush between your rocks and the glass, that algae is going to stay there forever, and over time, those spots will ruin the clean look of your aquarium. Also, if your Hardscape is too crowded, it creates dead zones where detritus can settle, and you won't be able to reach it with a siphon. That trapped waste eventually breaks down and starts fueling even more algae. So when you're making your Hardscape structure, make sure there are at least 2 inches between the Hardscape and the glass. You might be losing a bit of space for your design, but in the long run, it can determine if your aquarium is a joy to maintain or a source of frustration. A forever aquarium is one that you can actually keep clean. So design for the look, but build for the maintenance. If you're finding the video valuable, remember to like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and get to more people who love this hobby. When you see a professional aquascape with those steep, dramatic slopes, it looks incredible. You have a high background and a low foreground that creates a massive sense of depth, and you can actually see everything. All the plants are visible. If you don't create that slope, your background plants can be overshadowed by your midground plants. But there's a factor that can render all that effort useless, and it's a factor that will always be there: gravity. Aqua soil is essentially just round pellets of mud, and over time, those pellets want to roll downhill. Every time you do a water change or a fish swims near the bottom, your high slopes are slowly sliding down. After 6 months, your foreground plants are buried in soil, and your whole tank looks flat and messy. To build a forever aquarium, you have to lock that substrate in place. What you can do is build a hidden skeleton underneath the soil. I like to use small rocks or driftwood to create retaining walls inside the slope. You push the rock into the soil, and then push the soil towards the back. This helps create the slope and it keeps the soil in place, because the soil will have to push through the rocks in order to roll down. By building this foundation, your slope stays the same on day 1 as it does after 2 years. There are many other little tricks that people use to deal with this problem. They use filter mesh, lava rock, corrugated plastic. You have to get creative when you're fighting gravity. Most beginners treat a cleanup crew like a one-time deal. We see the first sign of algae or that white fungus on the wood, and we want to add 10 shrimp, 5 snails, and a bunch of otocinclus. Sometimes we add them before we even see any algae. But for an aquarium to last, you have to view the cleanup crew as a shifting team. In the early stages, there simply isn't enough food to support a massive crew. If you add them all at once, you can end up having to move some of them to other tanks, and if you don't have another tank, you might even lose some of them. Nobody wants that. Instead, it's much more effective to introduce them in stages. During the first 2 weeks after the tank is cycled, it's best to stick to hardy snails. My personal favorites are horned needite snails. I find them to be much better algae eaters than the regular needites. They can handle the initial new tank films without needing a mature ecosystem. You should wait until the 1 month mark, once the plants are rooted, before bringing in a monotrim. They use their little pincers to pick up algae between small leaves, and they can uproot them if the roots are not fully developed. That's one reason why you see your carpet plants floating in the surface. They also need that established biofilm to really thrive, and for sensitive species like otocinclus, it's usually better to wait a couple of months. These fish rely on microorganisms that only appear once a tank is truly seasoned. By staging the entry of your cleanup crew, you ensure every animal has a job and a food source. When I first started my aquarium journey, I was a huge supporter of preventive maintenance. I thought I had to be ahead of every single problem, but over time, my mindset has changed. I now strongly believe that in this hobby, we are often our own biggest enemy. The more we try to fix, the more we disrupt the balance. Nature is always trying to find its own equilibrium. Most of the minor problems your aquarium encounters, it will actually solve by itself if you just give it time. I don't do much preventive maintenance anymore. I let my plants grow until they are clearly overgrown, and only then do I trim. I only clean the filter when I notice the flow is starting to drop. I don't even scrape the glass until the algae is very noticeable. If something does get out of hand, I keep the solution simple. I'll tweak the fertilization slightly or add a couple more algae eaters to the team. It's a much more relaxed process, and that simplicity is what guarantees you'll stay in this hobby. Because if the maintenance is too much of a chore, you won't do it for long. But if you let the tank mature on its own, you'll eventually see it reach its most stable and beautiful state. If you apply these 5 tips, you'll start building your aquariums for the long term. Because the most rewarding part of this hobby isn't the day you finish Escape, it's the years you spend watching it grow.